fancy making your own DIY gift wrap? Perhaps you bought a stamping set with some pre-made stamps and an ink pad, or even making your own using potato prints. But how do you get your stamps to line up across your wrapping paper and you don't end up with wiggly lines everywhere? Hello and welcome, it's day 6 of Vlogmas and I've been making my own wrapping paper. Just look at how neatly it's come out with all the little baubles in straight lines and evenly spaced throughout. Watch on through the video and I'll show you my secret trick for getting my stamping perfect, and I'll also show you how I'll wrap up my presents using 3 pieces of tape and absolutely no wastage with my wrapping paper. What I got in front of me is a scrap piece of paper. I just want to see how these stamps stamp out, what sort of size they're going to be. Obviously I can see them, but I'm not sure whether I want to group a couple together or whether it's going to look too big. I've got my good piece of paper that I'm actually going to do my printing on. I've got some printing ink, and if you're interested in sourcing something similar, I will leave a link in the description underneath the video. One thing I have heard is that you should store your inks upside down so the ink settles on the surface of your ink pad rather than settling down to the bottom, so I'm turning mine upside down. And I've also got a couple of rulers and I'll show you how I'm going to use those. But first of all, let's ink up the stamps and see whether we want to use all of them or just 1 or perhaps 2 of them. And of course I am using these stamps that I bought, and in fact they're a year old. So I didn't use them last year. I thought I was going to have lots of time to do lots of Christmas crafting and I left it too late. So just having a look and seeing what I want to use. So inking up by putting the ink onto the stamp, putting it down onto the paper and firmly applying some pressure and not shifting or moving your block, because otherwise you'll end up with an image that isn't crystal clear. So I'm wondering, I quite like the idea of having 2 stamps together, but I think this one might be a little bit too big. So I wonder whether one last try to see how I can group them together. Or perhaps I'll just keep one on its own. Actually, I think I might just go for 1 on its own. So having got my sample piece of printing there, I know how much pressure to apply, how much ink I'm going to need. And of course, this is a handcrafted project, so if you do end up with bits like I haven't totally taken, it doesn't matter. This is a handcrafted project, and if you wanted something perfect, you go to the shops and buy something perfect. So let's get stamping. So I'm going to go with the middle-sized stamp, I think. So I will need to wash these stamps in some warm soapy water when I finish. I must remember to do that. So trying to do your stamps in a straight line, I'm going to use a ruler. I think I haven't quite cut my paper straight, but never mind. So I'm going to use a ruler, and if I butt up the bottom of the stamp to the ruler each time, they shouldn't wave around too much, wobble around too much. You could always do this by eye, but it's a bit like when you're doing, handwriting, whether you can write in straight lines or whether your writing goes a bit skew-if. So I'm lining that up with the top of the ruler, firm pressure, and then I'm going to take my other ruler and just rest it next to the stamp, and that will give me a nice consistent spacing. So eyeing it up, making sure I don't knock the rulers, so just being careful really. And I think this is what Christmas crafting is all about, isn't it? Not rushing, just having some time to do something that's quite methodical. It doesn't take an awful lot of skill to do this. Oh, I've forgotten to move my ruler, too much talking. And just get in the zone and carry on. Slide that bottom ruler along to the end. And then for the next line, take my ruler and I'm going to space it a little bit. So take my ruler, I'm just going to cover up little hanging parts there. And this time I want to offset my printing, so I'm going to put my ruler over the first print, sort of masking them off. And then when I come and print, it'll end up in the middle. Always a bit nerve-wracking putting the stamp down. Sliding the ruler along. And then when you get the hang of it, you can go a little bit freestyle, using the ruler as a guide, just along that bottom edge, but lining all the stamps through in the previous line but one. Ta-da! Evenly printed DIY gift wrap. I'm sure it'll come to no surprise to you, it's much easier to wrap up a gift if you've got some boxes. So throughout the year, I am that person that saves all sorts of boxes which are nice and sturdy, which will be really, really easy to wrap. And the first thing you need to do, rather than just guessing how much wrapping paper you need, is actually to measure out how much wrapping paper you'll need, and that way it means less wastage. Now I'm going to show you a trick here that my friend Louise Lewis showed me, and she has got some videos on her YouTube channel, and I will try and remember to link through below so you can actually learn from the expert rather than learning secondhand from me. So in order to work out how much paper I need to measure out my box. And to do that, because I'm going to be finishing off my gift with a ribbon, I'm going to use the ribbon as a measuring tape. So I put my ribbon on the end of the box. I'm getting the length of the box here, going all the way round with a little bit of leftover. And then I will know exactly how much wrapping paper I need to cut to get the width that I need. So I'm laying that down onto the paper, and then with my paper scissors making a little bit of a cut just to mark that. Just down there. And then I need to work out how much paper that goes to go the other way round. So I am going to measure the box from that edge there through to that edge there, and do exactly the same thing. Lay my tape at the edge, and then with my scissors making a little snip up on that top edge, and then it's a matter of joining the two marked pieces together and cutting out my wrapping paper to size. This paper's got lines along it, so it might look like I'm cutting freestyle, but I'm following a line up the paper. And if you use quality wrapping paper, perhaps you're buying wrapping paper, some of them do have grids on the back, which makes your cutting much easier. You just need to go a little bit further. And then I'm going to lightly crease along that first cut line, just so I know exactly where to cut. I like to use double-sided tape to fasten my parcel together, and then you don't get all those unsightly tape marks. So line up the tape with the edge of your paper and peel off the backing. And then pull your paper firmly, and where you just gave that little bit of an overlap, you've given yourself enough paper to make a nice join. And then make your corners, your edges, in the way that you probably always make them. So push that down, a nice crisp triangle at the corner here. Like that. Fold those in. And then another piece of tape along this top edge. And smooth that into position, so you've got a really, really neat finish, and then do exactly the same thing on the other side. And there you have a perfect wrap, 3 pieces of tape which are invisible. So let's finish that off with a bit of a ribbon. I'm using my fabric scissors to cut my ribbon, and I have some ribbon on a reel, and I never cut my ribbon off until I've tied my bow. You never quite know how much you're going to need. So over the top, around the back, tie a half knot, flip your package over, and I need a bit more ribbon. So I shall just shuffle that round a little bit. Give myself a bit more of an excess. I reckon that's probably about right. So I'm just going to cut with my scissors. So what I like to do is go underneath and catch the first section of ribbon underneath. And then to get a really neat bow, make a loop, make another loop, and then tie the 2 loops together. And don't pull too tightly, because you may need to adjust the tails and adjust the loops as well to get the absolute perfect ribbon, which I don't think this is too bad for a first go. So I want to pull it really firmly, so I'm going to just pull on the tails a little bit so I can give it a really sharp tug, and that'll hold the ribbon tight, like that. Smooth out the loops, and then I've got this little bit of excess here, so I need to trim that to size, and I'm going to neaten off the corners as well. So I like to fold my ribbon in half and cut from the folded edge out to the side, and it gives this lovely little fishtail edge to the ribbon. It just looks much more polished and finished. Same here. Fold the ribbon in half and cutting outwards from the folded edge to the end of the ribbon. And there you have a perfectly wrapped gift with the most perfect ribbon bow. And of course, let's not forget that final floral flourish where there's a bit of greenery. So I hope you found that video helpful, and isn't that the most perfect gift? Shame it's just an empty box. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you again tomorrow.